Okay, good evening. It is 6 o'clock and it is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. We are in the council chambers of the city of Platteville. And I am calling the regular scheduled meeting of the Common Council to order. We'll start with roll call. Candace.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Jason Arts.
Here.
Lynn Parrott.
Here.
Todd Casper.
Here.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here. Okay, the first item on our agenda is consideration of the consent agenda. The following items may be approved in a single motion and vote due to their routine nature of previous discussion. Please indicate if you would prefer separate discussion or action on any of these items. First, we have the council minutes from April 26th, both the work session and the regular meeting. Second of all, we have payment of bills. Third, the financial report for April. Appointments to boards and commissions, and tonight I'm appointing Joey Schonover to the Plan Commission and Herb Cody to Tide. We have licenses, temporary Class B to serve fermented malt beverages to Roundtree Gallery on Friday, June the 10th from 4 to 8 for the Nature in Mind Artist Reception. A temporary Class B to serve fermented malt beverages to Roundtree Gallery for Friday, June 17th from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the Frank Johansson retrospective reception. Another Class B temporary license to serve fermented malt beverages to Roundtree Gallery on Friday, August 26th. For the Frank Johansson retrospective closing reception. And we have 1 and 2 year operator licenses as in your packet for selling and serving alcohol. We have several permits. One is a bike race from the Platteville Family Resource Center, scheduled for Saturday, July 16th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have street closings, South Hickory Street from West Pine to Greenwood Avenue for St. Augustine's Church Gathering tomorrow night, Wednesday, May 11th from 1 to 9. And South Bonson Street for our Spot's 3rd annual Black Joy Celebration Series on Sunday, June 19th from noon to 8 p.m. and Saturday, July 16th. So it's actually 2 permits from noon to 6 p.m. One is for Juneteenth and the other one is July 16th. I have had a couple of people register in the audience in support of the closing of South Bonson Street. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. And Candace will vote.
Kopp.
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Nichols. Motion carries.
Okay, nobody has filed to speak tonight under citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. Is there anybody on the council that has anything, or does Adam have something?
Yeah, I would say one thing, a couple of things. So last week obviously was Municipal Clerks Week. So just want to give a shout out to obviously Candace and also Colette for all the work they do for the city in regards to the elections and everything else. I also believe this week is also International Firefighters. There was a day this week, so definitely want to recognize Ryan and the rest of the crew. They unfortunately had a fire that they had to attend to last night, so definitely want to be appreciative of their efforts in regards to that. So there you go.
And I do want to give a shout out to the all city staff who on Friday of this week will close City Hall at 11 o'clock for the remainder of the day for City Spruce Up Day. So I suspect we'll see them out and about cleaning up, sprucing up, and otherwise making our city look even better than it is right now. So thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next portion of our agenda, which are the reports. Board and Commission committee reports, Historic Preservation Commission, Ken.
No addition.
Other reports that were in the packet, the Water and Sewer Financial Report for April, the Airport Financial Report for April, the Tide report, Tide update. We do have a work session scheduled, so I think we'll delay any comment about that until then. And there were department progress reports in your packet. So does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, then let's move on to our first action item on the agenda, which is ordinance 2203 lead service line replacement. Howard.
Yes, thank you. What we have is an ordinance to require replacement of all lead service lines for all water services in the city of Platteville. This ordinance would require the deadline be December 31st, 2024. We have approximately 140 remaining. We've got a number who are in the process of removing their lead lines right now. But the issue here is that due to issues with lead water in places like Flint, Michigan, the EPA and the Wisconsin DNR are increasing their rules and requirements that would include us doing additional sampling, testing, and optimization of chemical treatments, even with only one lead service line. So the only way to avoid the additional expense is to ensure the removal of all lead service lines. And so far, we've been successful in getting grants through the DNR, and having a lead service line removal ordinance adds points to the scores so that we would have preference or priority. So staff has reviewed this. The Water and Sewer Commission has reviewed this, and so we're recommending adoption of this ordinance.
Okay, questions from any council members on this ordinance? Okay, do I hear any proposed action?
I move to approve the ordinance as it's printed here.
Second. A motion by Todd, second by Eileen to approve ordinance 2203, the lead water service line replacement ordinance. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, second agenda item tonight is resolution 2211, authorizing execution of the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement. And this also relates to lead service lines and replacement, even though it doesn't say that in the title.
That is correct. The city of Platteville was awarded what they call a principal forgiveness loan, which in simpler terms is a grant from the DNR for up to $94,102 for replacement of lead service lines in 2022. And so what we need to do is we need to approve this resolution so that we can execute those documents.
Okay, questions on resolution 2211? Authorizing us to sign documents to get $94,102. Otherwise, I'd ask for action.
I move to approve resolution 2211, authorizing the city clerk and common council president to execute documents related to the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement 4881-09.
Second it.
Okay, motion by Kathy, second by Lynn to approve resolution 2211. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our agenda for action tonight is the 25 East Main Street loan extension. Joe.
Yes, thank you. Back in 2015, the RDA and the city both approved loans to assist with building improvements at 25 East Main Street. It was a property that was in need of structural repairs to the facade, some interior modeling. They expanded the number of apartments in the building. So the city and the RDA both approved a loan. Basically, they were set up the 7-year term loans, but they're amortized over 20 years with the idea there'd be a large balloon payment. And then hopefully at that time, the applicant would be able to refinance with standard private financing. Those balloon payments are due this month. At this point, the property owners do not have enough equity in the property to allow for refinancing at this time. So they're requesting a 2-year extension to the loans. The RDA's original loan was for $80,000, which has been paid down. There's a summary sheet on the back of the page. So it's about $54,000. The RDA has approved that 2-year extension already. So the council would have to consider extending their loan, which originally was for $172,000 and is now down to about $124,000. So the RDA used their loan funds, so they were able to approve that on their own. The city at that time had obtained financing on our own. We went and borrowed some money from Fidelity Bank and Trust, and then we loaned it to Element Investment Properties LLC. That's actually a typo in your report. So we are making payments to Fidelity, and then their Element is making payments to us to make that. So Fidelity has agreed to extend our loan with them for an additional 2 years. So Element is optimistic that with an additional 2 years of being able to pay down the debt on the property, they'll be able to roll all those loans back into one privately financed mortgage. So basically, the last time the city did it at a rate that was slightly higher than what we were borrowing it at. So I think we borrowed at about 3%. Excuse me, we ended up loaning to them at about 2%. Our current deal with Fidelity is at 3.25%. So staff is recommending we increase that to 4%, so that there's a little bit of income coming in over that to handle staff time and administrative expenses. So staff would recommend approval of the request for a loan extension to Element Investment Properties LLC for an additional 2 years at a rate of 4%. And that would be subject to a revised note mortgage and agreement as needed. Any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. And Adam, you clarified it. LMN Investment Properties LLC no longer exists.
No, Element Investments LLC no longer exists.
So it's
One,
Our loan is with
first one.
Element Investment Properties LLC, which is still in good standing. That was a typo in they have two, or at one time they had 2 different LLCs for their properties.
so on the sheet you saw from the Department of, I think it's Wisconsin Department of Financial
Yes.
Institutions.
Yeah.
The first one that was listed, that one is default. And that was when Joe looked into it a little bit further. That was a kind of company they were using for property we believe to be in Prairie du Chien. The second one that is listed as in current standing, that's the one that's listed as L&M Investments LLC, which is
So it
our
is
properties.
LMN Investment Properties.
So our mortgage is with the Element Investment Properties LLC, and their agreement is with Element Investment Properties LLC. I believe that, like I said, they had properties that they owned in Prairie du Chien that have now been sold. So I believe they just dissolved that other LLC when they sold those properties.
Okay, other questions?
So I know I asked this at the last meeting. So the total outstanding mortgage for the property is
405.
405,
That's
according to that, the
that's the
sheet.
first mortgage on the property.
And we're second mortgage?
Second position.
We're second and second.
Correct.
So I'm going to ask again how the numbers work, because if this goes to default, the value of the property is, I don't know if that's on here.
Well, the assessment is on there, but there's no appraisal on it.
But the assessed value is 224,000, but an estimated fair market value of 253. So my question is, if this goes to default, I'm assuming the first mortgagee gets paid first. Then what happens to us?
There's not enough, it depends on what the property would end up selling for. Whatever, if there's any sale that's above what the bank takes, then it would come to the city and the RDA. If not, then we're out.
Just be out.
We essentially would be required to make that loan whole. So we would actually have to pay the bank.
That answers my question.
Okay, folks, do we have any more questions, or are you ready to take some action?
To approve, excuse me, a loan to LMN Investments LLC in the amount of $122,741.77 at a rate of 4% with 23 equal monthly payments and a final balloon payment of the unpaid balance due on April 6, 20, subject to a revised note, mortgage, and agreement.
And I assume you meant LMN Investment Properties LLC. Okay. So a motion by Eileen, second by Ken to approve this loan to LMN Investment Properties LLC in the amount of 123,741.77 at a rate of 4% with the other balloon payment and a revised note, mortgage, and agreement. Candace will vote.
Cop,
No.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our action agenda and the final item on our action agenda for tonight is contract 8-22 highway painting.
Thank you. This is our annual painting of center lines and other highway pavement markings. This year, it's our turn to replace or repaint Marquee Avenue and South Chestnut Street from Southwest Road, including the roundabout and out to Business 151. These were originally painted when the street was constructed in 2010. Normally, the paint lasts 5 to 7 years. This contract would repaint those items. We did have one alternate bid to paint the dashed yellow line on the bike path. However, the base bid came in slightly over budget. So staff recommends awarding the base bid only to Century Fence. And we will either absorb the overage in the CIP budget, or I will remove the crosswalk for painting at Ready Drive in order to make it so that it's under budget.
Okay, questions on the highway painting contract with for the year? This would be with Century Fence. Any questions?
Back one. Howard, just to confirm, the alternate A, that 4122 is for the painting of just that crosswalk?
No, the alternate bid would have been to paint a dashed yellow line on the bike path going down the west side of the street. That was
Oh,
that was the additional $4,100.
And that bike path is not part of the street.
No, it's next to the street. It's the pathway on the west side off of the regular street. So I included it in case bids came in better than expected, but it didn't.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I move to approve contract 8-22 highway painting to Century Fence for the bid price of $31,332.40 with the overage absorbed in the CIP budget, subject to removal of the crosswalk at Ready Drive.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy, a second by Ken to approve contract 8-22 for highway painting. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we will now move into information and discussion items. The first of these is the video camera system RFP. Adam.
So the city of Platteville currently utilizes numerous disjoint systems to monitor and record video camera images or footage in various areas throughout the city. These systems vary in brand, technology, age, capacity, and capability. The city wishes to replace all these systems with a unified and centralized system that is capable of expansion as the city grows. The solution must be able to change building infrastructure in response to changes that occur in office facility layouts over time. So this is obviously something that we've identified as kind of one of our 2022 city goals, and also has been part of our strategic plan, has been to kind of look across the city in regards to our video camera system and upgrades, as well as buildings and also parks and other facilities. So approved within the 2020 City of Platteville Capital Improvement Plan is a citywide camera system project. To move forward with this project, it is recommended to disseminate a request for proposals from qualified solution providers to provide video camera solutions to replace our existing video camera system with a consistent, unified, and expandable system. The RFP has been reviewed by our information technology consultants at UW Platteville, and recommended additions from their organizations have been added into the proposal. So the tentative project timeline for this process is slated as follows. The RFP would be available for distribution potentially on Monday, May 16th. The deadline for submittals would be Friday, June 24th, so giving about a month for people to submit. Interviews would be conducted as needed the week of June 27th to July 8th. And then the council would initially review this on Tuesday, July 12th, and then potentially have council action on Tuesday, July 26th. The project is intended to be rolled out in two phases, with phase one being the initial camera rollout of various spaces within the city. And phase two will have a focus on long-term planning for remaining departments and beyond. For budget fiscal impacts and anticipated, the cost from a qualified service provider will be allocated against the 2022 CIP budget authorized for this project. Once the quotes have been received from providers, staff will be able to provide a better fiscal impact. So what I'm asking for is council members to review the attached RFP. And if you have any suggestions you would like to see added before distribution, please get me those recommendations as soon as possible so that I can include them in the document.
Okay, questions, comments? Ken.
My question is on a scope of services. And it's under phase one, initial camera rollout.
Yep.
And it says things such as City Hall, Police Department, downtown Main Street, Brodsky Center, Legion Park, and the city dump site. I would recommend also City Park, Smith Park, Harrison Park, Valley View. In particular, Harrison Park, Valley View have been subject to vandalism over the years. And one, one item has been the removal of the sign. We have a new sign at Harrison Park, and at Valley View, I don't know if that one's replaced it or not. Two have been removed, stolen. So I'm suggesting that those parks be added. And people, when they have access to some beverages that are alcoholic, they gain more strength for doing vandalism and so forth. And I've been a witness and seen a lot of things that have happened at Harrison Park as far as vandalism. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question is about protect staff against potential threats.
Mhm.
Now, we went through this last week, talking about staff and employees, so maybe the word should be, instead of staff, protect employees against potential threats.
Sure.
Okay, that's it for now.
Anybody with any other thing that they saw as they looked through this?
Like to just reiterate suggestion for City Park. I know that the veterans there has been vandalism with the memorials and the statues, and they've been working on some sort of a camera
Sure.
thing for a while.
Well, it's, I agree that we have lots of places that need to be monitored, and it'll be an interesting exercise to see how much it costs and how we prioritize what can be purchased.
Is there any possibility that we could develop a mobile unit in the future, or some thoughts towards this, so that it can be placed in troubled areas, troubled neighborhoods, places where we're seeing break-ins to cars, vandalism, parking lots where there's behavior? I think there's models in other cities. If you go to the right parts of town, you'll see setups where it clearly announces surveillance by the police in the neighborhood. So something maybe for the future would allow us to move something around if we need to, and be less predictable with what's being surveilled at times for some of these troublemakers, or those people on alcohol, I guess.
Eileen?
I also wondered about the smart poles that are being installed on Main Street.
Yep.
If we're considering those as part of our requirements, or when we look at what can and can't be done, that we can use those as well.
Yeah, so our intention with this would be to work with whatever provider and try to find a way to make sure that the information coming from those smart poles kind of, duly connects to whatever system we choose to go for. So that's all part of the discussion and figuring out.
Trying to remember too, Adam, is this a project where some ARPA funds were allocated to cover?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, this was a combination of ARPA funds, CIP,
And past
and past
applications. for
applications,
CIP.
carryover. Mhm.
Okay, Adam, will we actually take action on the RFP?
No,
next
so
time?
this doesn't need any formal action. So essentially, my intention was hopefully sometime next week would be to actually disseminate this. So if, as council members, you can kind of take a look at it, and if there's any additional suggestions, I'll hold off till sometime next week. And then we'll just put this out, and then obviously it'll come back for the council to review, and we have potential firms that have submitted on it.
Good. So the next agenda item for information discussion is an update on the fire station professional design services RFP submission review.
Yeah, so just wanted to give obviously the council, and then also, the community as well, an update on kind of everything going on with the fire station professional design services. So again, in 2021, the city of Platteville completed a fire department comprehensive analysis, which determined the current location of the Platteville Fire Department would not be suitable for renovations or expansion. The analysis recommended the potential for a new fire station to be located at the former OE Gray Learning Center building, located at 155 West Lewis Street. So in 2021, the city of Platteville gained ownership of the Learning Center by entering into a transfer agreement with the school district of Platteville. In the spring of 2021, the city of Platteville submitted a community project funding request to Congressman Ron Kine's office, in which an $8,000 request was submitted.
8 million.
8 million, sorry, that would get us nowhere, was submitted to the House Appropriations Committee. 7 million was authorized by the committee's members to be included within the 2022 fiscal appropriation cycle. The city of Platteville has received official notification. The appropriation was approved in the omnibus bill, and the president officially signed the bill into law during the month of March. City staff are currently working with a contact at the USDA, as we now must submit a community facility program pre-application. So we have been working through that process. We now have officially been assigned a representative. So whatever firm is selected, there are a couple of steps that have to occur. we now have to do kind of a public information session, which basically kind of will be this, but in more of either a work session or kind of a formal actual process where we talk about the project, talk about the architectural firm, and kind of give opportunity for community members to express their concerns, what they would like to see in the fire station, everything along those lines. So again, in continuing to move the needle, the city requested proposals from qualified architectural or engineering consultants to be part of a team to perform professional services for the design of a new fire station. The design services shall include landscaping design, architectural design, interior design, site, civil, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and telecommunication engineering services. The design proposal is basically broken out into kind of 4 phases where there will be a schematic design, design development, and then kind of finalizing in actual construction documents that then could be bidded out. And then potentially that firm or the city then could have the conversation in the future about construction management, whether we want this firm to handle that or whether we want to bring in somebody separate to kind of be the official person on the boots on the ground, so to speak, as the project is going forward. So the deadline to submit proposals was Thursday, March 31st, and city staff received proposals from the following architectural or engineering firms. We received 10. So we had CS Design and Engineering, Jewel Associates Engineers Incorporated, Integrity Engineering and Design, Shive Harity Architectural Engineering, ADCI, Wendell's Five Bugles Design, OPN, Brunton, SEH, and Keller. So city staff created a fire department building committee, which consisted of the following members in your packet. I'm not going to read them all, but it's a very group of city staff. We had Southwest Technical College, we had a planning commission member, we had our park and recreation director, as well as members of the public, business owners, and also members of Inspiring Community, as well as the town of Platteville representatives as well. So the fire department building committee met multiple times during the month of April to review the submissions. In reviewing the submissions, the committee consensus was 4 firms should be selected for further consideration. So during the first week in May, the fire department building committee held in-person interviews with Keller, SEH, OPN, and Wendell's Five Bugle Design. So as far as the budget and fiscal impacts, city staff is currently in the process of reviewing the cost assessments provided by the various firms who submitted a proposal. These estimates were shared and reviewed with the building committee, and a recommendation and breakdown will be provided to the council when a finalist has been recommended. Grant opportunities that would cover the cost of architectural services are being reviewed. City staff are reviewing the potential for receiving private donations to cover either the entire or a portion of the cost to complete the RFP. And city staff is also analyzing available city funds to cover the cost of the proposal and will provide further figures when a finalist has been recommended. So after the fire department building committee concluded interviews with the 4 semifinalists on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, that should say, the recommendation from the committee was to have the city manager conduct finalist interviews with firms SEH and Wendell's Five Bugle Design. After the conclusion of the final interviews, the city manager, myself, will bring back a formal staff recommendation with budgetary figures for consideration action at the May 24th Common Council meeting. I will be sending council members a copy of the RP submissions for the 2 finals for your consideration. If you do want to see them, obviously I have them at City Hall. You can come kind of review those. I have reached out to all of the firms now and kind of let them know of the status that they are at. So I will also be reaching back out to all of the firms, as that is customary, to kind of explain to them certain reasons of why they weren't considered to be a finalist. And we have scheduled now meetings with both of the 2 finalists to occur next week. So both myself and Chief Simmons are going to be in those interview processes. And based on the feedback we got from the kind of building committee, we'll be asking kind of some follow-up questions that were, both good, and kind of some concerns that came out of both of the finalists. And then we plan to kind of report back to you here on the 24th with a recommendation. And then at that time, as a council, you will either be able to accept that recommendation, or if you need some additional information and want us to do some further research or questioning, we certainly will do that. So there you go.
It's been a process. Lots of reading and lots of meetings.
Yeah, and I think definitely I want to also give a kudos to the members that have served on that building fire station committee. It definitely helped, I think not only the council in being able to kind of narrow down the group, but they also all have kind of, for better or worse, encouraged that they will continue to be on that committee as we go forward. The thought process would be that committee will kind of be the eyes and ears of listening to the architect, and then also including the council in those conversations as well. But we'll essentially kind of do a little bit of some due diligence for you so that you don't have to attend every single meeting that they would be having. So.
Okay, so that concludes our information and discussion items. So now we're prepared to move into our work session. So what is your
Thought process or
Yeah.
plan here? I think you guys can sit at your desks. That certainly is fine. So the plan is, we'll kind of give an overview of Tide and kind of everything going on there. Unfortunately, with schedules and everything, not everybody from Tide will be able to attend this meeting, but definitely thought it would be kind of a good idea to give a council an update on what Tide has been working on, as well as we have 2 council representatives, obviously, that have been on Tide. So I would like to kind of give the opportunity for them to speak. I do see we have a couple of members in the audience here from Tide as well. So just kind of wanted to start off the conversation by saying this is actually one of our kind of 2021 city goals that we had, was to have kind of a work session that talked about everything that Tide has been working on, as well as give the council kind of an update and an opportunity to give some feedback back to the task force. So if there are specific things you have heard in the community that you would like to work on, as well as also the Tide members, an opportunity to kind of speak about some of the things that they have been talking about. So just again, for a brief synopsis for council members in the community, the city of Platteville is committed to learning about implementing policies for our community around inclusion, diversity, and equity. So the Common Council authorized the establishment of a task force to include up to 10 at-large community members, residents of the city, and/or employees of a business organization within the city. 2 alderpersons, the city manager, and a record note taker, as well as another staff member are on that committee as well. So the Task Force for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, or TIDE, meets typically on the 4th Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. in the library community room. As described in the city's Inclusive Diversity and Equity Statement, the task force is intended to be an incubator for policy and decision-making recommendations that will be advanced to the city's employees, elected officials, and volunteers for further development and implementation. Currently, the committee has the following members who may be in attendance this evening if their schedule allow. We have Keith Custer, Brandon Snyder, Emily Zachary, Ela Kakade, Jean Zawicki, Rosalind Broussard, Zane Chrysanthemum, Wayne Wooders, Royal Palmer, Herb Cody, Akshay Sockwell, Julie Stevensons, and then council members Lynn Parrott and Jason Arntz, as well as myself as the city manager, and Jesse Lee Jones as our director, our library director. So again, kind of during this work session, it's going to provide council members an update on what the task force has been discussing, provide an opportunity to discuss any shared future goals, and discuss the City of Platteville Community Resource Guide. So pretty much one of the things that the TIDE meeting or the task force meeting has wanted to do is be a little less informal. So it definitely is something where, you know, we try to get away a little bit from the Parley Pro and the motions and everything else. So typically every TIDE meeting starts off with there's Keith right there. Hello. So typically our TIDE meetings start off with just kind of an opportunity for anybody on the committee to just talk about things that they're hearing in the community. Whether it's conversations that they're hearing from things going on in the school district to UW Platteville, to just flat out anything they've heard in a business. A lot of times we have different kind of members of that. So we have, you know, Wayne Woodards is with the Platteville Chamber. So obviously he kind of has a tie into the business community, as well as, you know, with Jason Arts being at the university, we kind of have a tie in there. Lynn, obviously, with some of the connections from the churches and various other organizations that she is with Family Advocates and everything else. And then we have a very kind of good group of different kind of leaders in the community and just interested citizens who continually kind of want to be a part. So some of the things that TIDE has been working on is with specifically kind of inclusivity, diversity, and equity training. So we have been reaching out to kind of different organizations. We reached out to the organization that the school district has been working with. We recently have been continuing to work with UW Platteville on trying to come up with a training, not only that could be for our city staff, but as well as the council, and then also potentially the community. So that is something that we're hoping as the months kind of continue, we're going to be able to kind of finalize that plan. Unfortunately, they've had a little bit of turnover in that department at UW Platteville. So that's something that we're continuing to work with them on as well. But then the main thing that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit is kind of the community resource guide. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but kind of want to give this opportunity to pass it off to probably our 2 council members that have been on the committee for a couple of months to just give them an opportunity to kind of speak about their feedback. And then obviously if we have a couple of different members. So
Yeah, I was going to say, if any or all of the members that are in the audience want to come to the microphone, you certainly can, because since we're,
right.
we wouldn't generally do it that way,
No.
but since some of us are more challenged with our hearing than others, it's nice to have the microphones, and so this presents that opportunity. So Lynn or Jason, who wants to?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of experience on the committee, I think a lot of it was first just kind of determining the scope, kind of just figuring out, okay, where do we start? Where do we, what are some areas that you need to be looked at sooner rather than later. I think too, it's just been a good experience kind of hearing from other community members as well in terms of, concerns and things that are going on in not only the city, but the school district. I think, yeah, that's pretty much all I can kind of think of right now in terms of where things have been at so far.
I was just going to piggyback on that and just say that one of the ways that we came up with the idea of including or doing the community resource was when we always have it open to the public to come up, and we had some individuals who were fighting homelessness come up, and it made everybody in the room just tune into what resources they knew, how we can tap into. And then to me, it was just a realization of how many resources we actually have. If we don't talk about them, other people don't know. And so I was really excited when, we already had something very similar to this, where if, people need clothes or but a lot of us had more information than other people. And so just being able to put that all together was really powerful to me. So that was what was really, really fascinating to me. I also was excited just to see how more of our community people are coming together and trying to figure out how they can help and how they can fit in, and organizations are coming. And so it's a growing, it's how I'm almost gonna say a test tube baby, but it's a growing little something that's happening, and we are, pulling components together to make sure that everybody is equally served as possible in the community. Yeah.
I see that Jessie found her way to a microphone,
She
which,
did.
which would indicate to me that she probably wanted to use it.
We may have done this on purpose, but go, Jen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of a staff perspective. I can tell you that one of the things, kind of echoing what Lynn was just saying, having a dedicated time to just sit down and focus on these issues, I think does demonstrate to the community that we are open, and we have had some very interesting individuals come in and share their experiences, which just allows us to do our jobs better and to really identify areas that we might need to focus on in the future. I do think we're still kind of learning and growing. We have new members kind of popping in and out, and I think that's actually really helpful because we're kind of developing a network of community members that have expressed interest or that they care about certain topics. So one of the things Adam and I have a interest in pursuing, and I think the committee as a whole has expressed an interest in, is doing some more in-depth staff training to make sure that we have kind of a solid base of, what are we talking about when we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusivity, and how do we roll that out to a team that really varies. We have people with master's degrees on staff, and we have people with high school educations on staff, and how do we make sure that the information we're providing to them is useful and relevant to what they're doing on the day-to-day basis. So you don't want to just do that without a lot of thought and conversation. So as Adam already mentioned, working with UWP and CISA 6, who's been working with the school district, I think those conversations are a starting point, but I still think we want to find that kind of just right for our city employees to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And I think that's all I have to add at this time.
Wayne.
My name is Wayne Woodars. I'm the chamber director, and I felt it was important to be a representative for our businesses because I can bring information to our meetings that may be of a concern to them, and I can bring that back to them. Or if there's a topic that hasn't really hit the businesses yet, I can bring that information back to them. So I just think it's a very worthwhile thing that I have a seat on this, or if I can't come, I'll send a representative. But we need to work together, everybody in our community, to make sure that this is an inclusive and welcoming community. So that's why I'm happy to be a part of this.
So I don't know, Keith or Rosalind, Rosalind just gave. So basically, we're just kind of giving an opportunity for anybody from Tide to just kind of talk about kind of the meetings that they've had, experience, or anything else. I don't know if you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalind Broussard, and I wanted to be part of Tide basically because I worked at the university. I taught classes in ethnic studies and women and gender studies. So I was looking at having a lot to bring from to the table. Plus the fact is most people in here know I'm originally from New Orleans. And at the time that I was born under the apartheid system of government because that's what we had. And so I bring a lot of personal experience too that people might not know about.
You good or you
want? So I'm just learning, I guess, listening, and as a concerned citizen, I work at Avista or Belkin in town here. So from a employer perspective, I'm interested in some of the goals of Tide, and also just as a private citizen, how do we build bridges rather than divide as a community? And I think the local politics, and I don't know, like I said, I'm learning and listening is really my role, I think.
So some of the things, obviously, it's one of the things that Ty did is that I believe this was during our March meeting is as a group, we kind of just had kind of a brainstorming session and kind of looked at, okay, what were some of the things that we felt as the task force should kind of dig into. So to just keep you as council members kind of where, I think a lot of the members have hit on it, but we kind of came up with a list of reviewing leadership training opportunities, further, analyze the inclusivity, diversity, and equity working statement. That's something that we want to make sure we're doing on a continual basis. Review opportunities to be more gender inclusive in city practices such as bathrooms. So that was something that definitely came up as part of the conversation. As it's been talked about, kind of continually reviewing partnership opportunities with other organizations such as Black Platteville, Southwest Rainbow Alliance, et cetera. I'm trying to partner with some of those organizations and trying to figure out contacts so that when we have individuals that come to the meeting, we can have a resource for them or kind of get them in touch with individuals that could assist them in whatever situation they're dealing with. Kind of again, review and discuss with the public where barriers are still present and need further focus or review. Discuss with business community areas where the community can improve on inclusive diversity and equity and discuss barriers they are dealing with. Review community health needs assessments and promote mental health resources. And then review concepts of inclusive art and community spaces. So that's something throughout the rest of the year and kind of continually the group is going to be working on. But what we really kind of wanted to talk a little bit about tonight with the council is what is in your packet. And that is kind of this community assistance resource and care guide. And where this came out of, as it was discussed kind of by some of the members, was we had two individuals that came in and basically really kind of was eye-opening, I think, for the task force was in regards to homelessness and how, there was questions about or concerns about not really knowing the resources and where they could go or what organizations they could reach out to. And this was something as we, again, as Tide still is kind of in its infancy and trying to figure out, where it can do things and what its, what its place is. One of the things that continually as staff we have talked about is there have been situations where we have either had somebody come into the library or have come into City Hall or in other spaces. And even some of our other members have mentioned that they just have been approached by somebody who flat out tells them they're homeless or they're dealing with some type of a situation and they don't know what to do or where to go. So what we looked at doing was there a way we could create kind of an all-inclusive guide that would at least be a starting point? One of the things I think we have continually discussed as a group is that this guide is kind of going to be it's a living document. So it is never going to be finished, and it is always going to be kind of evolving and changing. But we kind of thought that by putting this together, it at least could be kind of a starting point for when our staff members are approached by someone who indicates they're looking for a particular service or amenity, or just flat out have questions. So what you can see is we have kind of put this together to indicate certain kind of areas of focus. So we have clothing vendors that are in the area. We have counseling services, education, employment, food, legal services, medical, rent, mortgage, and utility assistance services, shelter, housing options, substance abuse treatment, and transportation. And what we tried to do as a group was stick mainly to Platteville. But if we didn't have that, what was the closest or next available resource kind of within the county? So there were organizations we saw, government organizations in Georgia that had kind of created this. So we use that as kind of the framework to create this document. And then one of the things that we're going to be looking at doing as kind of a task force is, as members, going out to some of these organizations and seeing if they would be willing to potentially have some type of kit that we could put together where it's, hey, we're aware that if you need something to eat, you can go to this, either restaurant, or we've already had a conversation with them. They're aware, and they'll either give you a voucher or they'll give you a meal. We're working on trying to work with some of the local church groups as well, to see about, different services that they may be able to offer. And same thing with some of the clothing vendors and just different services. And again, as we become more aware as members of different organizations or different, amenities and groups that are out there, we want to continually build on this guide and update it. So our intention is to try to roll this out in the next coming month so that we can get it to our staff and kind of get it out into the community, and then have it be a document that just doesn't end there. It's something that we want to continually build on, and continually have the opportunity to try to, add to, and make sure that it has, as many resources as we can. Again, we are probably not going to have every organization in here because we may not know that. But if we continue to know about those organizations, we surely want them to be in this resource guide so that when we're approached by somebody in the community, and it's not just homelessness, it's a lot of different areas, but we do try to focus on trying to give as much information as possible. So that's pretty much been what the group has been working on. I definitely want to give credit to all of the members of the task force that have done this. It definitely has been a long process and it's not done. We're going to be continuing to work on it, but I think it's been great that we have had multiple people take a look at this and continue to add to it and kind of bridge to it. So I don't know if Lynn and Jason, you guys want to add anything from the council perspective, but that's pretty much kind of what we wanted to do tonight, was just give an opportunity to kind of have a little bit of back and forth about what Tide has been working on, show you this guide. We've kind of told you some of the things that Tide is going to be looking to in the future. And again, whenever there are suggestions or things you're hearing from the community, or anybody from the community that wants to, let this group know, we certainly will kind of look into those options and discussions and try to find the right place to continue to have those.
Okay, Jason or Lynn, anything else?
I just want to pretty much wrap it up by just saying that I think it's really important that when you find out things, I always, I'm telling Adam all the time, the streets are saying, when you find out something that could potentially help our community, help Platteville be a better place to live, to let us know, we need to know, because we can't do anything about it. It may seem like a minor situation, but if it's a hum or a buzz on the street about it, that could potentially bring us down in any way, be a gap in this bridge that we're trying to pull together, we need to know. And so, not toot my horn, but I do that Wednesday thing just for that, just so I can hear what's going on in the street and come back to whoever needs to hear it and say, hey, some people are feeling like this, some people need this. Where do we get this resource? I mean, I had a young man say to me, do we have any garbage cans on Main Street? And I immediately said, yeah, but then I think, do we have? Yeah, we do. We have to have. So that kind of thing, like when they are concerned, we want to, as their voices be there for them. And I think this is exactly what this book, this is going to show, is that whenever anybody comes to any department head or anything, they can be like, hey, and the department head will have the resource for them. Is that get off the stage music? I'm just saying.
No, you're good.
Okay, questions, comments, suggestions, reactions? Ken?
I have a question on the first paragraph. My question is, it says the Grant County region. So you didn't want to say the Tri-County region? Is Dotville, do they have something on their own? We have some places listed that are outside of Grant County as far as sources. How about Darlington? They're out, we're not going to include them? So my question is, is this Tri-County or just Grant County?
No, so we specifically did try to keep it Grant County specific because of the fact that, when we talked about this, if somebody truly is homeless, they may not have, transportation or a vehicle. So we tried to look at it from the lens of Grant County and kept it there. Now, if we, for whatever reason, we could not find a particular service that was in the Platteville area. I mean, our main focus was Platteville. And then if we couldn't get anybody in Platteville, we looked at Grant County. And then if worst case scenario, we had to go outside of that. But we did try to be specific that this was a Grant County guide, because the last thing we wanted to do was give this resource to somebody. And it's, well, sure, we have those services, but you have to go 35 minutes in a car to get to here. So we did try to be somewhat specific. So I see the concern, potentially we could alter that to say Platteville or try to keep that, but we tried to keep it Grant County region specifically because of that.
Okay, other comments or questions?
Yes, first, a question, probably to police chief more than anyone. You still provide after hours services to people who are homeless in terms of vouchers, food bags, that sort of thing?
We do on when we are presented with those cases, but we've passed a lot of that responsibility on to social services to try and have more consistency in how they're offered and whatnot.
Okay, I was wondering how that's evolved. I guess then that's it for now.
Anything additional? As I look through this, and I don't even know if it's possible, but I think another challenge in our community is one of language.
Yeah.
And so as I looked through the various options, I didn't see anything about language. Like if I'm struggling, I mean, I know that we have that, for instance, Southwest Health has people on staff that are fluent in Spanish and can help. But I mean, we have more than Spanish here.
Right.
So I guess I would ask about language and maybe that hasn't presented itself, but I would.
I know it's a conversation that's come up. So yeah, I think as a group, we can take that feedback back and look into, that was one of the things we were going to talk about next is, okay, as we distribute this, we should have it, I think we all talked about that. It can't just be in English, because then we're definitely defeating the purpose of what the true intention is of this guide. So I think as we said, that might be a conversation we'll have to think about with either, possibly talking to the school district representative about their ESL, interpreter, possibly talking to the university about, what services they can use. And even, there is language lines and different things like that. So I think we can, that's a good conversation for us to take back to the task force and see about how we incorporate that into this.
Any other, go ahead, Eileen.
I guess I was wondering also, will this be in print form at some point? Because it's great to think everybody can go online and access it, but if you're maybe like a copy of the library, a copy here, or whatever, so that people that don't have access to a computer or don't feel comfortable with a computer would be able to.
Yes, so that is one of the next kind of steps here as we kind of say, okay, we feel good enough that we have at least draft version A kind of done. I think we've all talked about as kind of the task force that we would take this and not only have it in City Hall, the library in certain areas, but then disseminate it to, have the chamber talk about potentially where that could go, look into businesses, the university, things like that, and kind of get this thing out into get it out to the public and find out areas where, just like we said, we may not have realized that there was this opportunity or organization that is doing that service and have them put in there.
And if anybody thinks of anything, I'm assuming they can shoot you guys an email that says, hey, how about this? Or how about that?
Yes.
Oh, good. Anything else on the tide update? Otherwise, I believe we'll move to our second work session agenda item, which is the infrastructure law. The building infrastructure law, BIL.
BIL, yep.
I'm gonna get this set up. I do have a little bit of a presentation that I was gonna present here. Yeah. Okay, but initially, what we have is the bipartisan infrastructure law has a grant window for 2023 to 2026 projects that are due to the DOT on June 3rd. These projects can be full reconstruction, including design costs, street and storm sewer reconstruction under the road. One of the things that I want to make sure that that people understand is when DOT means 2023 to 2026, what they're actually doing is they're looking at bidding these projects in August or September of the year listed, with construction the year following. So for DOT, a 2023 project really means that they're going to bid in August or September of 2023 and do the construction in 2024. So I wanted to look at some of our projects basically from our 2024 to 2027 construction year. We have two types of projects that we can submit for. One is for our surface transportation program urban category. Those are the collectors and above. I forgot to put the map back in this packet. It was in the last one. It had the fancy colored streets. But I've got three streets that I've suggested. One is East Main Street between Water and Broadway. This one was not on our 22 to 26 CIP. It was one of those more complex. Plus, we also had the uncertainties with the fire station. Based on discussions, we would request that this be in for reconstruction in 2025 or later. Street was last reconstructed in 1985, aging pavement, wide joints, causing a terrible ride, allowing water to get in. We also have that large storm sewer underneath the roadway, and the part underneath the roadway can be a project cost. And right now that storm sewer makes a turn, goes under the building at 250 East Main Street, crosses under East Main Street, continues under the parking lot west of the current fire station, and then continues behind Subway down to the intersection of Pine and Water. The part underneath the building has likely been untouched since the building was constructed in the early 1900s. Other portions are in poor condition. The project would replace sanitary sewer and water. Those would be funded by the utility only. The second project that I'd be looking at in this category would be Camp Street between Lancaster and Holman. It was listed in our 22 to 26 CIP as an unfunded street that should be in the CIP. What that means is that if there were no financial considerations, this street would have been listed as a project in that CIP timeframe. We have 35 street projects that were listed in the CIP as unfunded. We should be doing them, but we can't because we don't have enough money. And this was one. This stretch was reconstructed in the late 1960s, and there have been a number of water main breaks, to include 3 in the last 4 years, and one of them causing a major repaving with water undermining. The last one that I'm recommending in this category is Greenwood Avenue between Longhorn and College Drive. That one's also listed as an unfunded street project. This is the only section of Greenwood that has not been reconstructed recently. Last reconstructed in 1964. We put a thin overlay in 2012. We had a water main break in 2017. One of the issues is that the water underneath is undersized. We've got a 6-inch water section and we've got 10-inch water mains on each side of it. So there's basically a bottleneck through that one block, if you will. The other program is called Surface Transportation Program Local. About 2/3 of our roads fall into that category. I was looking at additional roads to go into this project, into these projects. We can have that discussion. One is the Knollwood subdivision, Knollwood Way, Hillcrest and Highbury Circles. Those were also in the 22 to 26 unfunded CIP list. They were last constructed in the mid-80s. There have been a number of water main breaks, 4 in the last 3 years. The last one that we had on Highbury Circle showed evidence of external corrosion of the ductile iron pipe. We're starting to see holes coming from the outside in on that pipe. The main culvert has a head wall that is pulling away from the pipe. Sanitary sewer would be in the backyards. It's not critical, but for future development, we should increase the size of the sewer line and move it closer toward the ditch between the homes and Highway 80 to allow for future growth to the south out towards Pleasant Valley Road. Another area that I was looking at is West Madison and Jewett Street between Elm and Lancaster, and the piece of 7th Avenue that join Madison and Jewett there. Jewett was constructed in 1960, Madison in 68, 7th Avenue in 64. The section of 7th Avenue was listed as an unfunded street. Between these 3 streets, we've had 13 water main breaks, with over half of them in the last 5 years. Another one, Sunset Drive between College and West Main. That was also an unfunded street in our CIP, last constructed in 1968. 4 water main breaks in the last 5 years. We ended up having to replace a lot of pavement for one of the last breaks because of the slopes and how it was undermined. We also have issues with corrugated metal storm sewer pipe that goes under driveways and has failed under at least one of the driveways in the last 5 years. 7th Avenue is already on our list. 7th Avenue between Camp and Ridge. There are a number of water main breaks on that one. Mountain View Drive also has a number of water main breaks. Roundtree Avenue has some older documented water main breaks. We have other criteria that could be used, including age or street condition. Grants are 80-20 for the design and construction for street and storm sewer work. Water and sanitary would need to be funded by water and sewer ratepayers. So I'm looking for some guidance and some items here. I have a brief presentation here. We'll go through some items to discuss our background, our project options. I talked about most of this. We had the splits in between the 2022 and the 23 to 26. We expect the 2022 funding to be awarded sometime very soon. We talked about those. Now, one option is to submit grant applications for our current 24 to 26 approved project streets. 24 has Soden, Grace, and Henry Street. 25 is Division Ann and Union Street. 26, Jewett, Camp, and 7th. Another one is we could submit grant applications for our unfunded street as additional projects, and then any combination of the above. Yeah, that I just basically talked about all of that stuff. What I do have, let me see if I can get to it here. Again, oh, this is not a touch screen. What I'm trying to do is get to my map here. Now, I can get to some of the photos that I had. I put some photos in the packet. What?
Hit escape.
Yeah, there we go.
Now you can get to the map.
There we go. On this map, you can see some of the items here. Let me remove some of these, some of the issues here. Come on, you. Well, let's just, if you look at the map, what I have on here are colored portions of the map. If you're looking at the map, anything that's in yellow are those unfunded streets that we're looking at. Anything in red are the ones that I'm recommending for the STP program. There's East Main Street down in the bottom corner down here. There's that Madison, Jewett, and 7th Avenue that we were talking about. I do have other colors and maybe a little harder to see. This is blue for Soden and Grace in 2024, and I have other colors for the other ones. But yeah, that's what we've got. There's the Camp Street from Lancaster to Holman in red. There's Mound View Drive. There's Roundtree and Greenwood and Sunset Drive, to show you some of those. Okay. We'll get back to the photos now. This is Gridley Avenue. Councilmember Killian talked about that last time. The pavement is old. It's deteriorating in some areas, but it's still mostly there. We haven't had any water main breaks on it, knock on wood. The next one we have is Jefferson Street. This one is photos from 2 areas in the cul-de-sac. That one's in our 2023. We're going to have to do some patching on this one because you can see the gravel underneath the skim coat of seal coat that was placed on top of that one. This one is Soden. That's in our 24. That also has some seal coat that's come apart and is down to gravel. We have two different ones here. These are also in our unfunded. I didn't even list them in our thing. North Street off of East Mineral Street. We did put a overlay on it about 18 or so years ago, but it's breaking up in that cul-de-sac. All it was just a 2-inch layer of asphalt. Joseph's Court off of West Golf Drive, that one is also deteriorating. That one's in our unfunded list. Right now, there's only one driveway that's on Joseph Court. But I'm just trying to show you where we're going on some of this stuff. The one on the left is Colleen Court in the cul-de-sac. It's also breaking up. And then the one on the right is Grandview on the south side, looking towards the west dead end. That's also breaking up pretty significantly. And that one is also on our unfunded list. One of the things that we need to be aware of with the costs is due to the additional requirements in the design process and during construction for their oversight, the cost is usually 20 to 30% higher than when it's done by the city alone. We also have inflation and supply chain shortages. When we do this 80-20 split, we establish the budget up front. And so if they say that the budget is $1 million and they're going to pay 80% of it, they are actually capped at that $800,000. And so if the project comes in more than $1 million, we get to fund everything above that, 100%. Water and sewer costs are not shared with the DOT.
So Howard, do you have costing that you can pass out for any of this? Because many of the projects that you identified said, we need to replace the water, we need to replace the sewer, these are failing.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we can't see that. Frankly, I can't see it. Can you?
No.
Can anyone here see it? No
I
one
will,
here can see it.
yeah, I will work through on and make sure that you folks have copies of all of this.
I mean, it seems to me that we should be putting our eggs in the basket of streets that need to be reconstructed, perhaps with storm sewer, but we can't afford a whole lot of additional water and sewer replacement, I don't think. I mean, have you brought this to the Water and Sewer Commission? Because, I mean, there's a CIP for them too.
True.
I mean.
Yeah, I have not, and that's, yeah.
I think that's, you know, it's not only the infrastructure law, but I mean, if that only covers the street, the design for the street and storm sewer, and yet we talk about this one's had this many water breaks and that one's had that many water breaks or sewer breaks. I mean, that's not covered. So the only way we can cover those costs are increases in water and sewer rates.
I mean, there are loan programs through the state to get.
Yeah, but you have to pay back.
reduce-
Yeah, you pay back a loan.
Yeah, you get reduced rates, but yes, those are needing to be paid back. We do have costs, and I will be sharing these with you folks also. Here's one of the lists here. For example, I mean, we're showing Grace Street, which is on our 2024 list. Utility estimated cost around $400,000. General fund cost of $480,000 for the water and for the for the storm and the street. If we did that, then that would knock the city's general fund share down to, say, $96,000. And so I have a number of those items, and I have those for some of our BIL projects. For example, there's that Camp Street from Homeland to Lancaster. That's a very expensive one because of how long it is, how big of a stretch it is. So yes, I will share that portion with you as well. The one thing that I was trying to get at was, do we want to limit our funding guidance to staying at the borrowing levels? Or do we want to look at increasing the amount of funding for the city portion going in for these projects? Do you have other projects that you're looking to put in? So it sounds to me like you're asking that we focus mostly on the street and storm sewer with water and
I mean,
sewer.
I said that, but that doesn't
Right.
mean 6 other people said that.
It would be nice if we'd focus on what we can afford. And knowing that the economy is going into inflationary issues here, I think it would be wise for the future to be a little bit careful over the next couple of years until we get some of these issues controlled. So what can we afford? I guess it's ultimately my question. I trust the staff and I take a ride around in my moped and I know what the conditions of a lot of these streets are after about 10 minutes, but what can we afford? That's the question.
Okay.
And Todd, to kind of piggyback on that, Nicola isn't here now, but Nicola and I were both on the league roundtable call today. And there are a number of communities now that have indicated that they will need to go to their
Referendum.
electorate for referendum to run their cities' operating budgets because of the significant increase in goods and services through inflation and the fact that we're all under these cost controls yet and we can't increase our budget more than X amount, and we have the expenditure restraint program. So right now there's a real
Seems to me that talking about
Peter.
spending a great deal of money right now doesn't appear to be a real wise choice, knowing what is historically happening financially to the country and its inflation. It just, I don't know where you sit here and talk about spending great deals of money during this time. I wouldn't in my own budget.
No, but I do believe that if the money is there, we should submit, but we should submit what we can afford. And
Okay.
I don't see this council being the council that's going to say, oh, we had planned to borrow $2 million, let's borrow 5. I mean, I see a lot of heads going. That's probably not gonna happen. And, I mean, yes, we can raise water and sewer rates, and we have, and we probably will have to again. But again, I think, at least from my aspect, we can't be. I mean, people only make so much money.
You're either growing or you're dying. I mean, that's what businesses will tell you.
Right,
And I don't think this is anything different than a business here.
right.
But I think we need to grow a little easier for the next couple of years until we've got some economic certainty. That's all, I guess.
I mean, I hear you and I totally understand the urgency when there are water break mains. And my thought was just, what would, if it came down to it, like, do we have like option where, what is a priority? Like, what mains would be a priority? And I know if I lived on that street, my street would be a priority, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying I don't think we're like wanting to fight against it. We just like, almost like, where are we gonna get this from? And I just don't want to put the city in a chokehold because everybody's street had a pothole. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would be the priority that you would want us to consider would be what I would like to do.
I'll run up some numbers and use the existing 24 through 26 CIP and work with the city manager and with Nicola and identify potential additional projects that we could include above those trying to keep in mind the water and sewer issues and, to maintain our borrowing at the projected levels, not increasing any of those borrowing levels. And that'll come back next time.
Howard, I have a question too. So it's great to see all this money from the DOT. But it's still an 80-20. And the comment you made about documented about the costs, if it's a DOT project, I guess I'd like to see a real simple, even take one street. What would it be if it, I mean, for example, something that's already in our CIP, say, okay, because the city's doing this, we would put that into CIP for this DOT, and we're paying another 20, 25, 30% because it's a DOT project. What does that actually mean? I mean, you see what I'm saying? Is it
worth it?
Is it worth it? Yeah. Yeah.
That's plain with the
It's
question.
hard to
Yeah.
see that.
In some
all this.
cases, for example, I'm looking at some of the numbers, generic numbers that I came up with. For example, Grace Street, 2024. I'm looking at, the city having about $400,000 to do the street and storm work for that street. It's hard to see up there. About 400,000. If we add in the DOT, we're going to add in at least another 80,000. And so the city's share would be about $95,000. And the DOT share would be about 380,000.
So we save about $300,000.
Yeah.
So, excuse me if this sounds too simple. So what if you would take the current CIP and use those numbers and put them in the DOT plan with the 80-20, and then sort of see how it funnels down to get to that point of what do we have left within the CIP that we've already talked about? Would that get us there?
That's what I'm looking at right now is
But then we could pick possibly some of the others that you pointed out.
Sure.
To make that goal of what we're looking at to approve.
Okay.
That would help.
Okay. I will have that ready for next time.
Another question I had too. So if we agree to any of these, can we pull out in the next couple of years, or are we stuck with what we agreed to this year without the foresight of, I guess, future economic conditions?
You can always withdraw from a DOT project. If you withdraw after you actually sign the agreement, then you reimburse the DOT for whatever costs they've incurred between the time that you sign the agreement and when you decide to pull out. But if you withdraw at any time up to when you actually sign the agreement, there's no penalty, no cost, no nothing. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Ken.
Okay, I have some questions. First one is on STP-U. And it's B, Camp Street between Lancaster and Holman. I've looked at that street, and that street, as far as payment, is, in my opinion, in good condition. Also, I believe that the curb and gutter, except for some occasional spots, is in good condition. Do we have to remove the curb and gutter on all these streets that we're going to be working on? I don't think we should be doing that. Some we should do it, some we should not. So
Okay.
in my opinion, we can save money on some of these streets by leaving the curb and gutter and just replacing the blacktop and whatever is needed as far as sewer and water. Okay, next page is STPL. And it talks about the following roads should be considered under this program. And my first question is relating to Knollwood subdivision. Are you proposing that the whole length of Knollwood would be replaced?
No, I'm talking about just the portion from the original subdivision. Back just a little bit
Okay.
west of Hillcrest.
Okay, I looked at the pavement on Knollwood Way and the pavement is good. The pavement on Hillcrest is good. Pavement is good on Highbury Circles. I think we're wasting money by taking out the curb and gutter. Also, I went back to the newer construction. What is it? Oak Haven Court. Pavement is in the worst condition of the 3 streets. Knollwood Way, Hillcrest, Highbury Circle. Poor workmanship. Who did the work and did the checking on this particular street? So this is one Knollwood I think we can cut down. Just because we do some changing on the water and sewer doesn't mean we have to take out all the curb and gutter. And then I looked at some other ones here. I looked at Sunset Drive. That's fine. That street, Sunset Drive, is unusual because it has asphalt curb. First time I've seen that. Also, that's the street that years ago we, as a council, asked for some more work to be done as far as the drainage way, and that drainage way goes to, I think, a stream, and some of that I think was filled in. But I believe there's going to be a problem there as far as a cost for the drainage way. In other words, the outlet of the water coming from Sunset Drive. I believe that's the one you had a big break. As far as the drainage way there's been erosion up at the head of that place on Sunset Drive. So I'd be in agreement in Sunset Drive that be replaced. Another one is says 7th Avenue between Camp and Ridge. I looked at this and this looks good except for the end of 7th Avenue, and it has poor curb and gutter in some areas, which reflects, in my opinion, poor construction. And the worst, as I said, the worst part is near Ridge Avenue. Then I wanted to find out about Mound View Drive from Case to Pitt. And it says street was constructed in 1974. And again, the curb and gutter is good. There's one spot of curb and gutter that is terrible. I can't believe anybody would construct something like that and so much sinking taking place. Next is Roundtree Avenue. My question on Roundtree Avenue. This is F. From Pine to Carlisle. Is that the only portion that you're thinking about changing?
That was the portion that I was considering due to multiple water main breaks. But yeah, there are other issues. The extreme south end is pretty well deteriorated. We talked about that too.
Okay, Carlisle Street, there's a small section there. Is there any thought about changing that, improving a small section between Court and Roundtree? It has no curb and gutter whatsoever, or we're just gonna leave that when you get up to it. So that's the question I have. Carlisle Street is going across from Court to Chestnut. And then there's a short section going from Court Street over to Roundtree. So I wondered about that. And then as far as Roundtree Avenue, and that area, Roundtree Avenue, you're not planning to do any changing with that from Carlisle to the end?
That was not initially proposed. We can look at different options.
Okay,
but
I looked at it last week with the neighbor that lives in the red house, the last house on Roundtree Avenue. And he said to me that there's a big hole there next to the Roundtree Avenue where it's ending, and he's thrown rocks and other material into it. And there's no curb and gutter on that street. I recommend that street get curb and gutter. It is a street is similar to Lower Avenue. There's the west side of the street. That water drains toward the bluff and goes over the bluff. And in my opinion, that water should be going to the east and could go down the cliff there and be retained and drained in a slower fashion rather than going over the cliff. Now, the parking on that street on the end of Roundtree, the parking for the red house is up next to the house, and then there's parking perpendicular for other spots, and that's the best way, in my opinion, to do it. So it needs changing and needs improvement. And then I brought up about the street next to me, that street was built in, 1969. And I want to describe the building, please be patient. I want to describe the building of the street. In 1969, I was new to the university here and to Platteville. And so I came home one day and they put in part of the street and they lowered the street next to my property. And now the street that used to be there level was now sitting lower, and then there's nothing dug out whatsoever. So I wound up with 5 driveways where people bottomed out. So that was not very nice to be faced with that. And then on Ridley Street, there is also bottoming out on that street. Now, in watching the construction, I saw them come back, and then they worked on taking out the excess soil from around the front of my house. And in the process, they smashed the concrete and the curb in 3 places. And the next thing that they did was they laid the concrete when the ground was frozen in the fall. And then the next thing they did on that street on Ridley is they threw into the area by me rocks, debris of asphalt, which I didn't think would make very good soil for my lawn. So I threw that material back out in the street. And I came back the next day, it was back in my yard again, so I threw it out twice. And so finally they got the message that I didn't want that next in my yard. And that street there at that point is the worst one that there is there, as far as there's a hump on it. And people bottom out, had people there on Sunday, and even though they turn at an angle, they still bottom out. So that's why I'm asking that street be repaired with milling, and that also there's the asphalt needs to be replaced, of course, in the milling, and the hump needs to be removed, decreased. So I think after 50 years, I think something needs to be done. So it may look like I'm asking for some preference here, but I think I waited long enough, 50 years, to get something done on this. Then also looking at the other end of Ridley, going down the street there, there's no curb and gutter beyond Roundtree, and that place needs curb and gutter also going down to the 10-unit apartment. And also there's broken places down there at the bottom. I guess my last comment is I call my street, I first called it the Alligator Street because it's so broken up. And I thought, well, maybe a better name for it would be Mound Street, kind of go along with the mound since it's mounded. I'll call it Mound Street. So those are my comments. I invite people to come out and take a look at it.
I guess a motion to change the name of your street then to Mound Street.
I thought it changes to Mound Street, yes.
I'm with you.
Actually, I prefer alligator.
I like alligator.
Alligator. Howard gave a bunch of pictures here. A lot of these are alligator streets.
Yes, they are.
And so I'm wondering why more of those aren't included. They're in worse condition than a lot of streets that you've shown me with your different items, different streets you've given here.
Okay.
If I haven't given you an example of the one for Camp Street, Holman to Lancaster, that street's in good condition.
I mean,
A couple of things. Yes, I think we have to be fiscally responsible. Howard, I appreciate the information you've given us. The thing that struck me was the very first line in your report, which is the DOT has a bipartisan infrastructure law called Bill 1L grant window for 2023 to 2026 projects. So we're not talking about 22. We already have our 2022 CIP projects. And it says it's due as of June 3rd, 2022. So is that the deadline for actually applying for funding for this money?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so we're running out of time. And the other thing that strikes me is the very first one under STPU, which is the East Main Street between Water and Broadway. That is a gigantic project. We've talked about that so many times. And then the other projects that you mentioned that aren't even listed in our CIP because there's no way to get the funding. They're unfunded. I think we're 100 years behind, 100-year plan for our streets or something like that. And I get the water and sewer element. That bothers me. But when you have 7 and 8 and 9 breaks in a street for water and sewer, it's a little silly to dig it up and put in the storm sewer and a nice new pavement and then have it break again. And that's one of the reasons that we have had as a city that policy, unwritten maybe, that try to do the water and sewer if you're going to do the whole street. So I guess my concern, I guess, is to say that we should be cautious. Yes, we should be cautious. But when you're looking at some money from the federal government, up to 80% of a project, that maybe we would not be able to do for another 20 years, I guess I would just say, let's just look at them all again. Yes, it's going to cost us some money, but we haven't allocated 23, 24, 25, 26 for CIP projects yet. We have ideas, but we haven't allocated funding. Should we be looking at some of these projects and saying that's what we're going to be doing in 23, 24, 25, 26?
instead of what's listed?
No, I'm looking at the projects he's listed. I'm not saying these are the projects we would choose. I'm just
Right,
saying
and-
that if you look at what we have for 23, 24, 25, 26 in our CIP projected out, and then you look at these, which one makes more sense? Do we change our CIP on 23, 24, 25, 26? I don't know that without going back and looking.
Right. And the other thing is I wasn't in any way or shape or form saying we should do a street that needs water and sewer and not do the water and sewer.
Right.
My point was this does not include water and sewer. And so we need to concentrate on streets, the potential for doing streets where that isn't the case. And yes, as somebody on the Water and Sewer Commission for the last 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, how many years, I have major concerns with some of the streets where we have 4 and 5 breaks, or where we have the potential But I don't know that these are the monies that make that possible, especially if the water and sewer ends up being about half of the cost.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Barb. I'm saying then maybe, we're very specific about which
Yeah.
street we might
So-
choose, considering everything.
Right, so we need to look.
But don't discount some of the
Right.
ones that have been presented.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that any of them, that they're bad projects, any of them. I'm just saying that there are quite a few here that because of the way the funding is allocated, we can't really afford.
Right.
I was just questioning about Howard, about the East Main Street project. Are you proposing that you're going to excavate that entire culvert all the way down across all those streets? Is that the plan?
No, I'm just saying that the condition of the culvert underneath the road itself is very old and in dubious condition. And what I'm saying is that the DOT, as part of their 80-20, can pay for 80% of the cost of the storm sewer that goes underneath the road itself and a little more. They were not going to give any definitive limits, but they would say, yeah, if we needed to make what we call a head wall, an entry on the north side, they could probably see extending the tube a little bit to make that fit and make the hydraulics work better. But they wouldn't pay for everything all the way down to Subway, for example. They would just pay under the road itself. But at least if we did that, then we could basically put a brand new culvert underneath there and not have any of that water go underneath that one building anymore. We could straighten it out so that it doesn't go under the building.
But that would be a whole lot wider than the road. I mean, that wouldn't be part of a road project.
What I'm saying is that when I speak with DOT, they're saying that they can maybe do a little bit extra that kind of makes sense, that helps take care of a problem under the road. And to me, the condition of the culvert underneath the road, it needs to be replaced. And so to me, the best way of taking care of that problem is to straighten that culvert so that it doesn't go under that building, and we improve how the water enters the tube and all that stuff. And so they're saying that, we'd have to explain it in the application, but I think we can do it in such a way that we could basically block off the water from going underneath that building and keep it so that it goes under the road only, and replace the culvert underneath the road.
Well, this would be a project done in what year? 2027?
25 at the earliest, or possibly as late as 27. It'll depend on the construction of the new fire station.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Last time.
the intent is to stage this so that the new fire station is built and everybody's moved in, so that we can do this without interfering with response times.
And we have the cost of the new fire station as far as good concrete around the fire station, so the same thing doesn't happen in front of what we see now in present fire station. The greatest amount of breakup of concrete is in front of the fire. That's gonna be happening over there, Bowie Gray. So that's another, that's what we have to plan for.
That's an issue that needs to be discussed during the design of the new fire station, is the entrance and exit from their building, wherever it sits on that property.
Whatever is gonna happen to the streets that are around there as far as fire equipment driving and no.
That's correct. That needs to be part of that
way.
discussion.
Need numbers. Before we could decide here, we need some numbers. We need a number,
I will have some of those for this next
and
time.
so on. Numbers
I will
on
present,
streets.
I will present you with this
We
information,
just can't sit here.
and we'll have numbers. We'll
It
have
would be great, Howard, if we could get this number sheet like this
Tomorrow.
week or next,
Mhm.
sooner rather
We can
than
get,
later.
yeah, we'll get it to you by the end of the week.
Certainly respect your thoughts on what should be a priority and what
Okay.
you believe should be done with this too.
Thanks.
No, I think the feedback from you guys helps, because the issue is, as you can see, is, we literally have we've had about a 2-month process where for the next 20 years, it's, hey, we're here, we're trying to get to here. So I think the biggest thing that helps us as staff is now we kind of know some parameters that we can kind of hone in on, which is, okay, let's focus on the projects that, as you can see by looking at the map, and that was some of the meetings that we had, a lot of our CIP projects we're considering to be, all right, let's go for those, because we already have identified that that's a problem and it needs to be fixed. So now the question comes down to, just like you said, it's as we start to whittle that off, it's, okay, if we do that, what's the pro, the con, and what's the extra? And is there extra? Because as we said, we have made a policy to stay within a debt limit, and that has gotten us to where we're not in some of these situations as other municipalities where they're having to go to their constituents and ask for more. We don't want to do that. So.
So I do have a question about this year's money.
Mhm.
We've heard nothing. Is that right?
Correct.
So we don't know if we're getting overlay on the streets that we requested or not.
Yeah.
Not yet.
And so
they're
do
telling
we
us-
have, I mean, they were going to bid that out by the end of August, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, that's like months away.
Right.
The
A couple, anyway.
DOT
What's your,
has told us that their intent is to announce the awards by the middle of the month, which is coming up here in the
The
next.
middle of May?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Which is coming up here any day now. As I said in my report, they had over 350 requests for projects, totaling over $250 million to compete for or over $260 million to compete for $70 million of funding available. So we'll see whether or not we're the 1 in 4 projects that.
Have they made any, the 1 in 4 that get funded, or they haven't said something to the effect that since there were so many, we'll give everybody a percentage?
They haven't said that either.
No.
My understanding is that they will only fund those projects that they can do 80-20 for, up to that 70 million of project money. I don't believe their intent was to cut it back and say, okay, everybody gets 10% or whatever.
Okay, so then that begs the question, if the projects we submitted aren't funded this year, are they projects that should be considered as we look at this next submission? That's a question.
Yes, that
Question.
it is a possibility and the DOT has recognized that. And they do have what they call a shortcut where they said, if you want us to reconsider a project that was not funded during this initial round, do you want it to go for the next round? We can go in there and basically check a box and it'll go forward. One of the nice things about that is, like we discussed early on, those projects that we submitted for this last time do not require water and sewer. Those are strictly the pavement only, and those would not impact the water and sewer budget.
All right, guys, it's 8 o'clock or almost there. And I think that there's just one motion we need yet.
To adjourn.
Motion by Kathy, second by Eileen to adjourn. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols. Motion carries.
Have you folks put out